Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Psychology of a Femcell series. So, I talk a lot on this channel about decentering men, and I feel like one of the main things that makes women male centered in the first place, it's this femcell mindset. Because remember, a femcell is really just a pick me who never got picked. So, my theory is that most women, they're not pick me's for every guy. But a lot of women, they might be a pick me for a white man. They're a pick me for somebody tall. They're a pick me for somebody with muscles. So the femcell is kind of like this pick me woman who is kind of left over. She feels like she's been left over in the dating market. That's why you hear a lot of women on YouTube complaining, saying, "Oh, I'm the last to get married. I feel like I'm last to get chosen. I feel like he always chooses lighter skinned women, or the white women get chosen first." That is a femcell talking point. Okay, and by the way, I know that the term femcell is not perfect. I know that technically there really are no femcells, but that's just the closest word that I can use to describe what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the women who are sexually frustrated, they're emotionally frustrated. These are the women where you'll watch their YouTube videos and you hear a lot of people saying, oh, they sound bitter or aggressive or they sound super angry. These are also the women who want to sabotage the pretty girl. They're always trying to sabotage the women that they feel are more desirable than them. These types of women hate to see other women get admiration. So that's what I mean when I say femcell. It's really a woman who is frustrated romantically, emotionally, and sexually. But I came across this post on the Black Ladies subreddit, and it says, "Level up dating strategy as a black woman. Hi, ladies. I am in a rough spot now. Basically, I want some advice on the title because my dating life has been trash. If you're familiar with the YouTuber Stefco, my dating life looks very similar to hers, down to a specific experience that I'm experiencing right now." There's a video where she talks about having a situationship with a guy who lives in a different city who asked her to fly out to his city so they can have sex. Well, I have the same situation. I was so in love with this guy that I shelled out $1,500 to pay for my flight and hotel to meet this guy in his city. He ended up seeing me twice, and he basically came over to fuck and just left. I felt like a specific kind of hourly worker, if you know what I mean. I feel hurt, used, and horrified. This is someone I've known for over half my life, and I can't believe he's the one who would do this to me. He doesn't even seem to care, and I have had several breakdowns in this cold, lonely city and spent all 5 of my days in this expensive hotel room I can't afford. It's a special kind of torture. He hasn't taken me out even once. I'm so sick and tired of this. Prior to him, I was dating a guy who also didn't want to do things with me in public and made false promises. One even had a whole other girlfriend. I don't know what it's like to be treasured and desired, and I don't know why. I'm starting to think the problem must be me. I'm very average looking and just very average. I've been told I have a nice personality. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I am nearing my mid-30s and I desire marriage. I was just wondering if anyone had any advice, or maybe words of encouragement or similar stories, and anything to make me feel better. Okay, so femcell mindset number 1 is looking for level up dating strategies from anonymous strangers on the internet. So women who have a femcell mindset, I feel like it starts off in childhood. These are the daughters of pick-me mothers. So maybe her mother was a pick-me. Her mother got pregnant by Dusties. Her mother had no boundaries with men. So she grew up in an environment where men could do whatever they wanted. Men could be absent. Maybe she had the absentee father, or she had a mother where her mom was constantly cycling through men or something like that. So that is the birthing place of this femcell mindset. It always starts off with a woman who comes from a background where other women in her family don't have boundaries around men. And so what happens is these women grow up with no guidance. They have no feminine role models. That's why they make content about femininity, and they're obsessed with femininity as they get older. One of their biggest insecurities is being masculinized. Well, why is that? Why do we only see that with some women and not others? Well, it's because the women who feel masculine, they never got to rest in their femininity when they were younger, and they never had truly feminine role models. So they didn't have any good female role models, basically. Their mother, their sisters, their grandma, aunties, they were all these pick-me types of women who just revolve themselves around masculinity. They revolve themselves around the male gaze. So mistake number one is looking for level up dating advice and looking for guidance for your life on Reddit. Do you see how desperate you have to be to do that? And I've noticed that only certain demographics of women are susceptible to this. Have you ever noticed that a lot of those dating channels, especially those live stream channels, remember like Kevin Samuels or like these channels where they have women call in and then they say like, why can't I get a man? Why can't I have a boyfriend? These are all women who come from this femcell mindset. They have kind of this femcell type of background. So a lack of self-esteem, a lack of boundaries, and they're so desperate to the point where they seek guidance on the internet from random people. And so these women are also easily able to get scammed because they'll be paying hundreds of dollars for these courses like, oh, you just have to talk to him like this. Let me sell you this course on how to get a white boyfriend. Let me sell you this course on how to dress so that a rich man will come up to you. Oh, all you have to do is just buy a dress from Zara. Have you ever noticed that the creators who scam these types of women, usually they're telling them that money will solve the problem? Okay, so that's femcell mindset number two. Using money as a way to solve the problem. Paying for a man. Paying $1,500 to fly yourself out to his city so you can get some dick. Paying for his bills. Paying for his meals. That's coming from a femcell mindset. So this type of woman, she doesn't feel like she can get chosen based on her beauty or based on anything special about her. Because this woman says at the end of her sentence, she said she feels very average. She says that she's been told that she has a nice personality and that's it. Okay, well, we know that generally speaking, a lot of men they're not pedestalizing women for their personalities. A lot of these women, it's not about love, it's about pedestalization. She doesn't want to be loved. She wants to be pedestalized. She wants to be spoiled. That's why they make that phrase where they're like, oh, I want to be spoiled. She says, I've never been treasured. I've never had a man like spoil me. I've never had a man want to show me off in public. Okay, yeah, that has nothing to do with love. Notice how this woman, out of all these words, you had a 500-word paragraph and you said nothing about genuine love or, genuinely liking each other's presence. All you said was, I just wanted to be treasured and basically, I want to be shown off. I've never had a guy want to do things with me in public. She says that she really wants to feel desired. That's what she's doing all this stuff for, is so she can feel desired. Women who have a femcell mindset, their core wound is never feeling desired. And I don't know if this man that she did all this for, I don't know if he was black or white. She doesn't say in the post. Oh, actually, I was able to scroll down and she says, I guess he can sense how emotionally easy I am. I am definitely that cool girl. But why do men want to take advantage of this? Don't they feel guilty? I really thought I knew this guy. He's a friend from high school I kept in contact with on and off. And I'm just shocked and confused at the complete disregard he showed for my feelings. I did once date a guy who treated me nicely, took me out on dates, was so sweet and caring, but he was still talking to his ex and didn't introduce me to his family despite dating for a year. He was white. And I'm not sure if it was a race thing or not. I'm just so tired of disappointment. Okay, so now I can confirm that at least one of the men she's talking about in this post is somebody white. So that's another part of the femcell mindset. It's a pick-me who didn't get picked by the man that she wanted to desire her, which in this case was a white man. And I've noticed there are a lot of black women who chase after white men. They really want to have a non-black boyfriend so they can prove their desirability to black men, or it's so they can prove their desirability to mixed women. It's almost like they see women of other phenotypes as their competition. And the girl from Danish Deception, she actually spoke on this. She talked about how she wanted to finally be the girl who has that white man that all of her friends would be jealous of. Because she said that she had all white friends and she mainly dated black men. But the Danish guy was on a different level because, her white girlfriends would be attracted to him too. So some black women who have this femcell mindset, they're not a femcell when it comes to black men. Most black women have slept with a black man at least once already. So a lot of them, they have this deep-seated need to be validated by white society. So they feel like the biggest form of validation is to feel desired. And that's what this woman said here. Notice how she didn't say anything about him paying for the hotel room. She didn't say, hey, I want my money back, or I want a relationship. No, all she wanted was to feel desired. That's a need for validation. That's a woman who's validation starved. And you see a lot of femcells talking about how they don't feel validated by the media. They don't feel validated for their skin tone identity by the makeup industry. They don't feel validated by the hair companies for like weaves and wigs and hair care. A lot of them come from pick-me mothers or neglectful mothers who didn't teach them the basics of femininity. Your mother is actually very important as a young woman. Your mother is the first one who is supposed to be warning you about what to avoid with men. But some women, they come from bad mothers. And so not only does the mom not guide her, but the mom doesn't give her basic dating strategies or, basic tips. And that's also where a father figure comes in as well. Because usually your dad will be able to tell if a guy is like a bum or if he's playing you. So a lot of these women, they had no guidance and they don't have a sense of community amongst other black women, according to their own talking points. So then they find themselves going on Reddit or just calling into random YouTubers' streams, trying to figure out and trying to crack the code on why they can't get access to white dick. And these women are going out of their way. They're literally auditioning for love. That's what this entire paragraph is. It's a woman who paid $1,500. She rented out a nice hotel, trying to make it romantic. You know how they have those pictures on Pinterest where it shows a man like decorating the hotel room with roses and stuff? So this woman essentially did that for this man. She basically reversed roles. A lot of women don't know how to survive in their femininity, and so they get stuck in this masculine chasing phase where it's like they're just chasing after any man who will give them breadcrumbs. Like what this woman described is breadcrumbs. A man telling you he wants you to fly out to his city so that you can have sex, that's breadcrumbs. And this is also why I talk about the difference between pretty privilege versus smegdualization. What this woman experienced is smegdualization. So this is a man saying, I'm willing to sleep with you, but it needs to be on my terms. And it needs to be convenient for me. You got to come to me. You need to come over to where I'm at. You have to request that PTO, get that time off work, come over here for the weekend. And then you can't even stay at my house. You got to stay in a hotel. And then I'll give you the dick. Okay, so that's a man that basically he wants you at his beck and call. But for some women who have this femcell mindset, they would rather be a simp for this man. They would rather be in the masculine role. This woman is basically a simp. You know how they say that men are simps? Like, oh, he's desperate. He's jester maxing. They say that men are desperate. Okay, well, this is the female version of that. She's basically a female simp for white men. She's a female simp for dick and attention. And then she says, oh, I feel so hurt. I feel so confused. Okay, well, I don't understand why you would be hurt and confused. This man never promised you a relationship. And if he did promise anything and he's not acting on it, common sense would tell you that, hey, he's probably a liar. So that's how I know it's also a femcell mindset. She has a lack of experience with men. A lot of women, they've either never had a boyfriend before or they're taking advice from women who are in these dysfunctional relationships, or they're taking YouTube advice from black female YouTubers who have never even had a serious relationship themselves. They've never had a serious relationship, or these women, they never show who this ethereal high-value man is. They have so much talk about, oh, get a high-value white man. And then the woman talking, she never shows you who her high-value man is. She never tells you what she's been able to achieve based on that advice. But it's almost like you have the blind leading the blind. So after this girl goes and fucks up her life and wastes $1,500, then she comes back to the internet. Instead of going to a therapist, she decides to go to the internet so that random strangers can tell her what to do next. That's how bad she spirals. That's another symptom of the femcell mindset. It's spiraling. It's extremely anxious attachment. You travel all the way across the country to see this man, very similar to the woman in Danish Deception, traveling halfway around the world and then, you sleep with this guy. Basically, they're doing everything backwards. Like, first she has to have sex with him, then he takes her on a date. First she has a baby, then they get married. So it's like everything is kind of flipped upside down and backwards, and she's just kind of stumbling through her love life. And by the way, this is actually not love. That's another part of the femcell mindset. They conflate sex with love. Having that femcell mindset, it leads to the pick-me mindset. Conflating sex with love. Thinking that a man's words, like basically believing everything a man says. Have you ever met a woman who's gullible as fuck? She just believes anything this man says because he's white. She believes anything this man says because he's cute. If that's not being male-centered, I don't know what is. This girl says that she relates to O. Stefko, so I'll show an image of O. Stefko if I remember to insert it while I'm editing. But O. Stefko was a plus-size, unambiguous, dark-skinned black woman, so she has a similar phenotype to Chrissy. And I guess apparently this is the standard of average in the black community. This is the standard of quote-unquote regular. But this girl says, I've known this man over half my life, and I can't believe he's the one who would do this to you. Okay, so that's more of a codependent, entitled mindset. Just because you've known someone for a long time doesn't mean they won't screw you over. Just because somebody's known you for a long time, it doesn't mean they owe you anything. If you offer a man sex, most men won't deny that. Most men aren't going to say no. I talked about this on my other episode. Most men are not your friends. So this woman, she doesn't have any social strategies or dating strategy. This is really a lack of social skills, which is another part of the femcell mindset. And then she's like, I can't believe he would do this because, I've known him for half my life. So apparently that's supposed to make you a good person. A lot of men will wait in the woodworks. They'll be your friend for decades, waiting for you to give it up. And then she says, I was so in love with this guy that I shelled out $1,500 to pay for my flight and hotel. You're in love with what? So that's the next part of the femcell mindset. They always struggle with limerence. They conflate limerence with love. So limerence is when you have this fantasy. You're in love with the idea of a man rather than an actual man. So you basically create this fictional character in your head. I call it the Prince Charming. You create this Prince Charming in your head, and then you put this man's face on him, and then you're thinking, oh, well, Tom, he's my Prince Charming. So-and-so is my twin flame. Have you ever noticed a lot of women who have a femcell mindset? Usually they are obsessed with romance books. They're obsessed with romance novels. They're obsessed with shows like Bridgerton and Love Island and Scandal and Grey's Anatomy. Anything that has a whole bunch of sex in it, anything that romanticizes men, these women are eating that shit up. And part of it is because they don't have experience with men in real life, and so they stereotype men as being these romantic walking demigods. And in her case, she admitted that at least one of these men was white. So we know how the media romanticizes white men. So that's another sign of a femcell mindset. She's got more experience. She spent thousands of hours watching men on TV. She didn't spend thousands of hours actually interacting with men in the real world. Because if she did, then she would know more about their nature. But instead, she's just kind of feeding into whatever the media says. And then she went and flew across the country and paid $1,500. I don't know who the fuck told her to do that. But she's clearing out her savings account, clearing out her bank account just for the chance of being in love with this guy. Just because she thinks that he might feel the same way. And by the way, if somebody truly loves you, their actions would align with that. So I don't know what her definition of love is. I guess, like I said, she conflates sex with love. If he gives me the dick, he loves me. If he calls me late at night, he loves me. If he said he wants me to come to his city, he loves me. So it's a form of being validation starved. Women who have never been desirable, even the smallest text message, even the smallest look, or the smallest high five will make her attached to that man. That's like a form of anxious attachment. All that man has to do is look at her and give her a high five, and she's got a crush on him. All that man has to do is text her over and over, and boom, she's in love. Then she says, I have had several breakdowns in this cold, lonely city, and spent all 5 of my days in this expensive hotel room I can't afford. So now she's blaming the city. Does that sound familiar? Have you seen those femcells online? They're like, oh, dating in LA is trash. Dating in Atlanta is trash. Oh, you have to move to North Carolina. You have to move to this city. They're no different than the male incels who are talking about geomaxing. It's the same thing. They're saying that they need to geomax. They're blaming their love life issues on the city they're in, as if it's the city's fault. She's like, oh, I'm just in this cold, lonely city. No, I'm sure there are black women in that city who are living normal lives, and they're not crying in hotel rooms and spending $1,500 to get some dick. So that's a female simp, basically. So femcells and pick-me's, they're really just the female counterpart to these incel types that I talked about on my channel. So these are the women who are actually simping after the men. They're simping for white men. They're simping in these men's comment sections saying, oh, do you like chocolate? Do you like black women? Do you like dark-skinned women? And then for her to admit that she has a pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable men. Have you ever noticed that these types of women, being single is never an option for them? Decentering men is never an option because they think it's extreme. That's another part of the femcell mindset. She's so desperate for male attention to the point where she thinks that decentering men, being single or celibate, she thinks that's too extreme. So she would rather pay $1,500 to get some dick than be celibate. That's how desperate she is for sex. That's how touch-starved she is. And she probably didn't even come. Statistically speaking, he probably didn't even fulfill her like that. But women who are femcells or pick-me's who never got picked, they get so little validation. They don't have the pretty privilege or anything like that. So when they do come across someone who gives them a breadcrumb of attention, these women become obsessed with those men. Have you ever met a parasocial woman? They develop this parasocial obsession with that man. They develop limerence. That's why she's paying $1,500 to fly across the country to see this man. Because in her mind, it's so rare for her to get that level of validation. It's so rare for a man to text her back. She's used to being ghosted. She's used to being blocked and rejected all the time. So when she finally receives a little bit of attention, that's what makes her obsessed. And by the way, this woman admitted later on that she has PTSD. So instead of simply being single and working on a healing journey with your PTSD, you would rather fly across the country for some dick. Do you see what I mean when I say that's a bad social climbing tactic? Decentering men is one of the best things you can do if you have PTSD. If you have relationship PTSD, why would you try to jump into another relationship? But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.